Speech off.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm here to do another best book to the year video. This one is for best of middle grade YA, fantasy, and a couple of classics. I guess you call them classics. They're kind of like miscellaneous titles I couldn't really figure out where to squeeze them in. So I'll just start off with those just because they're, kind of rereads. You already know about them. Anyway, so the first, well, I guess you wouldn't know about this one necessarily. The first one is Marmee by Sarah Miller. I heard about this one just through Goodreads in general, and then it started gaining traction. I don't really know where to slot this. Classic retellings, I guess. I wouldn't call it, I guess it could have gone under historical fiction. I don't know. It didn't fit exactly. Whatever. It is basically Little Women from Marmee's perspective. It's Marmee's journal. Just to warn you, I think book lover Amanda wants to read this, or I can't remember. Who was it? I think it was Amanda. But there is one bedroom scene between Marmee and the husband. I swear, this author, I love her books. Like, I loved her Caroline book that she wrote a few years ago, where it's Little House on the Prairie through Caroline's perspective. But yeah, there was also a bedroom scene with Ma and Pa. It's like Sarah Miller enjoys making our bookish parents do it to traumatize us. It's horrifying. But, like, truly, you can skip that, once you get to it. Like, just skip past. It's not necessary. I think she's just trying to say that they're human and they also have needs, and like, it's not just like they're three-dimensional figures and not the way that Laura or they're portrayed in children's books. So I think that's the point. Whatever. But I love this book. Other than that little uncomfortable scene of horrors. Yeah. So it's not much to say, really. I mean, there's some other things that she added to the book that weren't necessarily in Little Women, but I loved it. So, definitely read that. Then I read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. You already know what that's about. I read that throughout the year for a podcast. It's actually called Hot and Bothered, the podcast, and they kind of review classics. They did Jane Eyre a couple years ago, or last year, and they finished Pride and Prejudice at some point this year. I don't know what they're doing next. We'll see. But yeah, finished that. You know what that's about, so. But I loved it, so I thought I should go there. And then Anne of Green Gables, I just read that. You also know what Anne of Green Gables is. If you don't, you were living under a rock. Anne is the orphan girl that goes to live with Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert. She is, they're expecting a boy, they get a girl. The rest is history. And we get to see Anne's exploits as a child. I also read Anne of Avonlea. I was going to read the whole series during, I think it was November, where they had like a Montgomery November month or something. I just got through 2 of them just because I was reading other things too. But Katie from Paperbacks and Ponytails just says she's reading 1 a month. So I may continue the series that way. I just bought the whole series from Libro FM for Black Friday. So I may start End of the Island this month. But I kind of dread it at the same time. Like, I almost kind of want to reread the first 2 just to stay when Anne's little. I don't know. I find adult Anne not as fun. But I still enjoy them. Just, I don't know. Once you get past Anne getting married to Gilbert, I don't care anymore. Like, once she has kids, I'm kind of like over it. Just because there's too many gaps in time. The story's kind of anyway, I'm talking too much. Let's go on to the middle grade books. So the reason that I lumped middle grade and fantasy and like YA together is because a lot of these are like I don't read really any adult fantasy, so most of these are considered like middle grade YA fantasy, so it works. So I'm going to tell you about the non-fantasy ones first. I think I only have one. No, yeah, one. It's Planet Earth is Blue by Nicole Pantaliakos. Wow. I heard about this one from book lover Amanda. She was going to read it for, I think, middle grade March or something, and she never got to it, which I think is a sin because this is like my favorite middle grade apart from, what was that book called? The historical fiction I talked about. I can't remember. Whatever. But this is like my favorite contemporary middle grade. So I'll read the description. 12-year-old Nova is eagerly awaiting the launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger. It's the first time a teacher is going into space, and kids across America will watch the event on live TV in their classrooms. Nova and her big sister Bridget share a love of astronomy and the space program. They plan to watch the launcher together, but Bridget has disappeared, and Nova is in a new foster home. While foster families and teachers dismiss Nova as severely autistic and nonverbal, Bridget understands how intelligent and special Nova is, and all that she can't express. As the liftoff draws closer, Nova's new foster family and teachers begin to see her potential, and for the first time, she is making friends without Bridget. But every day, she's counting down to the launch, and to the moment when she'll see Bridget again. Because Bridget said, no matter what, I'll be there. I promise. Just that description makes me want to cry. And you're going to cry when you read this book. And for the record, I actually did not know about the Challenger. So that was a shock to me as well as to Nova. So yeah, just prepare for tears. Now on to the fantasy. First one is Tilly and the Book Wanderers by Anna James. I'm pretty sure I initially heard about this one through the Currently Reading podcast, and then Krista from Books and Jams started reading the series, so I heard about it from her. So I'll read the description. 11-year-old Tilly has lived above her grandparents' bookshop ever since her mother disappeared shortly after she was born. Like the rest of her family, Tilly loves nothing more than to escape into the pages of her favorite stories. One day, Tilly realizes that classic children's characters are appearing in the shop through the magic of book wandering, crossing over from the page into real life. With the help of Anne of Green Gables and Alice in Wonderland, Tilly is determined to solve the mystery of what happened to her mother all those years ago, so she bravely steps into the unknown, unsure of what adventure lies ahead and what dangers she may face. So, yeah, I love this book. I actually kind of think that this one could kind of be a series you can start for, I think it's like a readathon, that Cat Stories and Katie from Paperbacks and Ponytails are starting once upon a February or something. It can kind of go under at least fairy tale-esque books because you're going into them. So, yeah, I don't know. I kind of think it counts. Sort of. It's not exactly a fairy tale retelling, but, I mean, you're kind of going into the fairy tales, so, I don't know. I enjoyed the journey. There's only one left. I think it's going to come out sometime this year. I read the first 5 this year, so, yeah. And I was wrong. I don't know why I put this book in contemporary, but this next one, I put Tilly in contemporary instead of fantasy, because this next one is not fantasy. It's Breathe and Count Back from 10 by Natalia Sylvester. In this gorgeously written and authentic novel, Veronica, a Peruvian-American teen with hip dysplasia, auditions to become a mermaid at a Central Florida theme park in the summer before her senior year, all while figuring out her first real boyfriend and how to feel safe in her own body. So, basically, she's had, like, a ton of surgeries, and her parents kind of keep a lot of secrets from her about her health, so she can't really, and she also can't really control, like, what happens to her. Like, they kind of just decide, okay, you're going to get cut open again. And, I mean, I'm not Peruvian, I'm Mexican, but generally speaking, Mexican families, Hispanic families, we don't really talk about issues. We kind of just, you're going to do it, and you're going to shut up about it because I'm the adult and you're the kid. So that's kind of what she was kind of dealing with. And that's not generally how people do things here. So there's like a culture clash, you know, because now we're expected to talk about our problems. And if people treat us like that, we disown our family. And, you know, There's just a whole new thing about how we talk to kids, and like the other cultures don't want to do that. So there was like that whole culture thing. But I mean, so I kind of related to that in a sense. Um, but I mainly liked it because of how much she liked to swim. I love the way she described swimming in this book. Um, so yeah, it was a really good book. I call that YA more than middle grade, but I really loved it. I did a book review on it some point this year. Wait, did I? No, I meant to and I never did. Anyway, but yeah, I really loved the way she described swimming, and how she was really like determined to be a mermaid, even though like her parents didn't like the idea. I mean, they're like super Catholic, so you know, it's not something girls should be doing. I don't know, but it was a really good read. So I think now we're into fantasy. The next one is Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. I've been hearing about this one for years. I'm pretty sure I heard about it first through Meredith from the Currently Reading podcast. A cursed girl escapes death and finds herself in a magical world, but is then tested beyond her wildest imagination. Morgan is cursed. Having been born on Eventide, the unluckiest day for any child to be born, she's blamed for all local misfortunes, from hailstorms to heart attacks. And worst of all, the curse means that Morgan is doomed to die at midnight on her 11th birthday. But as Morgan awaits her fate, a strange and remarkable man named Jupiter North appears. Chased by black-smoked hounds and shadowy hunters on horseback, he whisks her away into the safety of a secret magical city called Nevermore. It's then that Morgan discovers Jupiter has chosen her to contend for a place in the city's most prestigious organization, the Wondrous Society. In order to join, she must compete in 4 difficult and dangerous trials against hundreds of other children, each boasting an extraordinary talent that sets them apart, an extraordinary talent that Morgan insists she does not have. To stay in the safety of Nevermore for good, Morgan will need to find a way to pass the tests, or she'll have to leave the city to confront her deadly fate. So I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was like a really interesting place. The Peter North lives in like this magical hotel. It is really fun. It's hard to describe any more than that, but I cannot believe it took me this long to read the series. Like, I'm pretty sure that I read all the fantasy books I owned this year during October. So yeah, it definitely lived up to the hype, and the next couple of books are really good. And the third one ended on a cliffhanger, and I hope the next one comes out soon. So next we have Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. Quentin Peters was the golden boy of the Rosewood low-income housing projects, receiving full scholarship offers to 2 different Ivy League schools. When he mysteriously goes missing, his little sister, 13-year-old Amari Peters, can't understand why it's not a bigger deal. Why isn't his story all over the news? And why do the police automatically assume he was into something illegal? Then Amari discovers a ticking briefcase in her brother's old closet. A briefcase meant for her eyes only. There was far more to Quentin, it seems, than she ever knew. He's left her a nomination for a summer tryout at the secretive Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. Amari is certain the answer to finding out what happened to him lies somewhere inside. If only she could get her head around the idea of mermaids, dwarves, yetis, and magicians being real things, something she has to instantly confront when she is given a word dragon as a roommate. Amari must compete against some of the nation's wealthiest kids who've known about the supernatural world their whole lives and are able to easily answer questions like which 2 great beasts reside in the Atlantic Ocean and how old is Merlin. Just getting around the Bureau is a lesson alone for Amari, with signs like Department of Hidden Places this way, or is it? If that all wasn't enough, every Bureau trainee has a talent enhanced to supernatural levels to help them do their jobs, but Amari is given an illegal ability, as if she needs something else to make her stand out. With an evil magician threatening the whole supernatural world and her own classmates thinking she is an enemy, Amari has never felt more alone. But if she doesn't pass the 3 tryouts, she may never find out what happened to Quentin. That was a long description, but it is a really good book. I actually kind of think this is kind of comparable to Harry Potter. I cannot remember who read this book, like among the booktubers I watch, but it was a really good book, and I consider it pretty clean fiction for fantasy readers to try. So yeah, it's considered YA fantasy, I think, or middle grade, I'm not sure. This next fantasy is not so YA. There's definitely a scene in here. This is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. I heard about this one through the Reading Through Life podcast. As one of the few witches in Britain, Mika Moon knows she has to hide her magic, keep her head down, and stay away from other witches so their powers don't mingle and draw attention. And as an orphan who lost her parents at a young age and was raised by strangers, she's used to being alone, and she follows the rules, with one exception, an online account where she posts videos pretending to be a witch. She thinks no one will take it seriously, but someone does. An unexpected message arrives begging her to travel to the remote and mysterious Nowhere House to teach 3 young witches how to control their magic. It breaks all of the rules, but Mika goes anyway, and is immediately tangled up in the lives and secrets of not only her 3 charges, but also an absent archaeologist, a retired actor, 2 long-suffering caretakers, and Jamie, the handsome and prickly librarian of Nowhere House, would do anything to protect the children, and as far as he's concerned, a stranger like Mika is a threat, an irritatingly appealing threat. As Mika begins to find her place at Nowhere House, the thought of belonging somewhere begins to feel like a real possibility. But magic isn't the only danger in the world, and when a threat comes knocking at their door, Mika will need to decide whether to risk everything to protect a found family she didn't know she was looking for. I loved this book. It is so cool. I mean, you can totally skip the bedroom scene toward the end, but like other than that, I consider it fairly clean. I don't think there's that much swearing, although I could be wrong. I love the 3 little witches that she's kind of responsible for. They're like little kids with magic powers. It is really fun. One of them is like always planning murders, which is kind of creepy, but it's like she doesn't actually mean it. She's just a really prickly little kid. But it's really funny, mainly because she doesn't mean it. But I just love this book and like the found family aspect that they sort of form to protect these little kids. It's just really cool. I need water. I think I'm getting sick too. Next we have The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I cannot believe it took me this long to read this one. A magical island, a dangerous task, a burning secret. Linus Baker leads a quiet, solitary life. At 40, he lives in a tiny house with a devious cat and his old records. As a caseworker at the department in charge of magical youth, he spends his days overseeing the well-being of children in government-sanctioned orphanages. When Linus is unexpectedly summoned by extremely upper management, he's given a curious and highly classified assignment. Travel to Marsis Island Orphanage, where 6 dangerous children reside. A gnome, a sprite, I can't pronounce this one, wyvern, an unidentifiable green blob, a were Pomeranian, and the Antichrist. That's right. But I promise he's not scary. That's kind of the point. Linus must set aside his fears and determine whether or not they're likely to bring about the end of days. But the children aren't the only secret the island keeps. Their caretaker is the charming and enigmatic Arthur Paranesis, who would do anything to keep his ward safe. As Arthur and Linus grow closer, long-held secrets are exposed, and Linus must make a choice. Destroy a home or watch the world burn. Not quite. Lindsay from Lindsay's Little Library just read this one. Well, did she just read it, or was it in her? I think it was in her favorites too. But yeah, she also loved it. Like, I know the whole like Antichrist thing sounds weird, but I mean, like, it's just kind of one of those things that, like, the point of the book is that these kids are supposed to be dangerous and terrifying, but they're not. So yeah, he's not. He likes the Beatles. Then we have The Once and Future Witches. This is definitely adult, by Alex E. Harrow. Actually, I tried to read 10,000 Doors of January by him, and I was not into it. In 1893, there's no such thing as witches. There used to be in the wild, dark days before the burnings began, but now witching is nothing but tidy charms and nursery rhymes. If the modern woman wants any measure of power, she must find it at the ballot box. But when the Eastwood sisters, James Juniper, Agnes Amaranth, and Beatrice Belladonna, join the suffragists of New Salem, they begin to pursue the forgotten words and ways that might turn the women's movement into the witches' movement. Stalked by shadows and sickness, hunted by forces who will not suffer a witch to vote, and perhaps not even to live, the sisters will need to delve into the oldest magics, draw new alliances, and heal the bond between them if they want to survive. There's no such thing as witches, but there will be. Okay, this is my last one. This one was really good. I didn't get into it at first. I had just put down to 10,000 Doors of January, and I was not into it, so I didn't think I'd like this, but I did. These three witches, like, they're sisters, and they have, like, family dysfunction. But by the end of it, they're, like, working together, and it's really good. Angie from Book Mama also just read this one, I think. Or, no, it wasn't her favorites. I don't know if she just read it. But yeah, it's kind of cool to hear about books that have made your favorites list. Like, if they're also mine. My favorites. I'm blanking out now. Might as well go into my best of nonfiction while I'm here. There's not too many. The first one is The Day the World Came to Town by Jim DeFeedy. I heard about this one from Gloria Z. Thompson. So basically this one is about 38 jetliners. They were bound for the United States. They were forced to land at Gander International Airport in Canada during 9/11. And it's basically how the population of Newfoundland Island, like, had to pull together to kind of help these stranded people, like, survive until they could get home. And it was a really interesting read. It was very narrative nonfiction. So I like that. It's hard for me to get into nonfiction unless it's kind of story form. So I wasn't sure if I'd like this, but there's also a documentary, so I really want to read it. I really want to watch it now that I'm, kind of into it. So yeah, there's that one. Then we have Call the Midwife by Jennifer Worth. I read this one for the Recall the Midwife podcast. It is basically the memoirs of Jennifer Worth's time in the East End as a midwife. I actually just read Shadows of the Workhouse, the second book in the series, this month. Was not as into it as the first one, but yeah. I prefer the TV show just because there's more drama in the TV show. But in Jennifer Worth, I don't know. Like, it's just not quite the same, but I still loved, like, her stories. She's very funny. But it's definitely more real than the show. But yeah, I love the book. And then we have My Friend Anne Frank by Hannah Pick Gosler. Hannah Pick Gosler was Anne Frank's best friend. But this book wasn't really about Anne Frank so much. It did talk about her and their friendship, but obviously Hannah lived way longer than Anne did. And so it was more about her story, her life story. Anne was a part of it, but I think she's only in the title for marketing purposes. The majority of it was about her life, which was totally fine with me. I never knew much about her. She was kind of in, like, biographies of Anne Frank as her friend, and, but it was really interesting to read about her life during the Holocaust. and how she had to help take care of her little sister Gabby. Like, she was between 2 and 4 during the time they were in the concentration camps. And they both got out, so yeah, that was good that they got out. The interesting thing is that Hannah decided to write it like right when she was like about to die. I think she was like, the author who co-wrote this with her was in the editing stages when Hannah died. Like, she got all the information she could as this woman was like on her deathbed. It's wild that she managed to be able to finish this book like right at the end. She never really wanted to do it, but she decided to toward the end of her life, when I guess she realized she was dying. And then I read another Anne Frank related book. This one is The Last Secret of the Secret Annex by Joop Van Wyck, or I think that's how you say it. This is the son of Bep. She was one of the ones who hid the Franks during World War II. You don't really hear much about her after the war. Like, she hid them, and then, like, she just wanted to remain invisible. And in this book, we kind of find out a reason why she might have wanted to remain invisible. Why, like, the whole thing affected her so much. I mean, apart from the obvious that they died. I can't really say anything or it'll spoil the whole thing, but put it this way. The Last Secret of the Secret Annex is a whopper of a secret, and if anybody's been following Anne Frank like I have, you're going to be shocked. So, then we have Counting the Cost by Jill Duggar. I mean, 90 Kids and Counting. I read everything 90 Kids and Counting. I will continue to read everything 90 Kids and Counting because I used to obsessively watch this when it was out. And I've been following it since all the scandals have happened. And so, yeah, this is Jill Duggar's kind of memoir. And, like, why she quit the show, what her dad did to her. I mean, I was expecting way more than she actually wrote in this book, so. But it was still pretty shocking. So, yeah, I also read Ginger's memoir, but it wasn't as interesting. It was just her kind of grappling with religion, but Jill really went into it, so. Yeah. Anyway. And then we have The Many Lives of Mama Love, a memoir of lying, cheating, writing, and healing by Lara Love Hardin. This one's about a woman who basically was your typical suburban housewife, but she started doing drugs and, well, stealing things, and she got arrested, and it's her journey to come back from that, like, and be a better person, I guess. We read about her time in prison and her fight to get her kids back and all of that. I mean, it was a tough read, but it was also a good read, too. It was definitely a narrative style, so it was one of those nonfictions that was easy for me to read. So, yeah. And last one is Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing by Matthew Perry. I mean, I wish I'd read this book before Matthew Perry died, because, oof, I got it when it first came out, and I really wish I'd read it then, because it is so sad, like, to think of where it ended up, like, because, his whole journey is really sad, like, his whole life is sad. There's a lot of swearing in this book, so if you're a Christian fiction reader, you might not like it so much. But, that's how he talks. I'm not going to take that from him. That is his personality, even on Friends. So, But, it was really sad to read. But by the end of the book, there's, like, this really hopeful note. So, I don't know. It was just really sad to think that he dies, like, a year after this book is published. Because he really, like, had, like, this hopeful outlook on life by the time he was this book ended, like his journey. So yeah. Anyway, this is my last, I guess, video in this series of my favorite books of the year. That ended on a downer, but I still enjoyed this book. So yeah, my next video should be maybe a book update or what I added to Goodreads. So anyway, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.
Speech on. Stop recording.